What if I told you that the most successful driver in Formula One history, Lewis Hamilton, could be being sabotaged within Ferrari? And that everything was revealed in a hellish race in Singapore where he literally ran out of brakes? Stick around, because this story isn't just a technical disaster. It's a bomb threatening to explode from inside the prancing horse. The 2025 Singapore Grand Prix was not just another failed race for Ferrari. It was tangible evidence that the SF25 project not only has technical limitations, but also carries structural inconsistencies so serious that not even the monumental talent of Lewis Hamilton can make up for it. It all started even before the traffic lights went out. From the first lap, Hamilton and Leclerc received radio orders to initiate the technique known as lift and coast, that is, lifting the foot off the accelerator before the braking zone and letting the car roll to reduce the thermal load on the brakes. This strategy is usually applied when there is a risk of overheating or thermal failures in the braking system, and using it from the first laps is an alarm signal that cannot be ignored. Hamilton knew something was wrong. And the worst thing is that I felt it turn after turn. As the race progressed and the heat of the Singapore night enveloped the asphalt, the SF25's performance plummeted. Not due to tire wear or driving errors, but due to a progressive degradation of the braking system that culminated in tragedy. 3 laps from the end, the left front brake simply stopped working. But this was not a simple technical failure. No, it was a systemic collapse in the middle of the race. Telemetry data that was leaked after the GP confirmed that the car had been experiencing a thermal problem since the first stint. The SF25's thermal management was not only insufficient, it was unstable, unpredictable, and completely incompatible with a runway as demanding as Marina Bay. In that moment, Hamilton went from pilot to survivor. Every braking was Russian roulette. The sparks that flew from the chassis of his Ferrari were not part of the visual spectacle of the car fighting at the limit. They were symptoms of a car that was falling apart in real time. The radio communication between Hamilton and his engineer Riccardo Adami was not only tense, it was chilling. "I've lost my brakes, lost my left front," Hamilton exclaimed as he tried to control the car without completely losing pace. At that moment he was not only fighting against his rivals, but against his own car. And in Formula One, the difference between winning and abandoning is not always speed but confidence. And when the car abandons you at the most critical moment, that trust is broken. On a technical level, the post-race analysis revealed shocking data. Hamilton was losing, on average, 0.6 seconds per lap during his final stint. But it was not a loss of performance in general terms. It was specifically concentrated in the braking zones, and above all, in the third sector of the circuit, where there are closed curves that require surgical precision. There, Hamilton's pace dropped 0.7 per lap from his own average at the start of the race. And even more telling was the qualifying performance. Throughout Q1, Q2, and Q3, the car failed to improve even a single tenth of a second. Zero evolution, zero adaptation, zero progress. This fact, which may seem minor to the casual viewer, is devastating within the paddock. It means the car was stalled. That everything that Ferrari could get out of it was already exposed from the first attempt. Engineers called this a technical block. A concept that in modern F1, where session-to-session improvements are the norm, indicates that car design has reached an operational limit. And overcoming it will not be a matter of minor adjustments, but of a complete redesign. Thus, what should have been a weekend to consolidate the Ferrari-Hamilton project turned into a televised nightmare. It was not an isolated failure. It was the complete portrait of a team that has no answers, and of a champion who, for the first time in his career, seems to have been trapped in a machinery that does not allow him to compete or evolve. What happened at the Singapore GP with Ferrari did not remain only on the surface of the technical disaster. What came next, what was leaked from within, is what truly transforms this story into a potential bomb for the Maranello team. It's one thing for the car to fail. Another completely different thing is that suspicions begin to arise that someone within the team itself is actively working to harm the pilot who should be the new emblem of the project. Because after the race, what began as simple rumors among engineers became a real network of leaks. Voices close to the Ferrari environment revealed that Fred Vasseur, team director, would have started an internal investigation after detecting mechanical inconsistencies in car number 44, Hamilton's car. What kind of inconsistencies? Strategic adjustments that did not coincide with the orders issued from the wall. Parameter changes in the setup that had not been authorized. And technical decisions that, coincidentally, disproportionately compromised Lewis' performance, but not Leclerc's. The sabotage hypothesis does not arise from paranoia. It arises because the pattern repeats itself. Ferrari has historically been a structure with multiple levels of power, engineering, strategy, aerodynamics, and of course internal politics. But when the driver who should lead the team's recovery begins to fall victim to what appear to be internal boycotts, then the entire structure is shaken. There are unconfirmed but persistent reports indicating that some members of the engineering department still show internal resistance towards the figure of Hamilton. And not only for sporting reasons. The signing of the Briton was a decision imposed from the highest levels, even outside of Vasseur, and altered internal hierarchies within the technical team that could now be trying to regain control through covert sabotage. In Maranello, loyalties are divided. There is a line that responds to Leclerc, the driver who has been molded within the Ferrari ecosystem since its inception. And there is another that has been forced to adapt to the arrival of the seven-time champion, with its own work team, its engineering style, its methodology and demands. The underlying conflict is deeper than a dispute of egos. It is a fight between two opposing visions of the future of Ferrari. One based on the romanticism of developing internal talent. Another more pragmatic one, based on incorporating external experience to achieve immediate results. And in the middle of that crash, Hamilton's car becomes the battlefield. From the rear suspension to the brake thermal management, there are areas of the SF25 that have shown such specific irregularities that they suggest tampering or, at the very least, an intentional omission of maintenance or calibration. Can this be proven directly? Not yet. But the data doesn't lie. In a category where everything is measured to the millimeter, where the exact torque of each screw is known, any deviation is detectable. And if these deviations affect only one car week after week, then the question inevitably arises: accident or sabotage? This type of internal fracture has happened before. Teams like McLaren in 2007, Red Bull in times of internal change, and even Mercedes when Rosberg and Hamilton broke harmony, have shown that conflict within the team can be more destructive than any external rival. But in the case of Ferrari, the situation is even more serious, because it is not just a conflict between drivers or between philosophies. This is an existential threat. If Ferrari fails to cohere its internal structure, the entire project could implode. For Lewis Hamilton, this is not just another difficult chapter in his career. It is probably the biggest structural challenge he has faced since he debuted in Formula One. And it is a radically different challenge to anything that has come before. Because here it is not about regaining rhythm, overtaking a strong teammate, or facing an inferior car. Here the enemy may be inside. And that completely changes the rules of the game. Hamilton came to Ferrari to seal his legacy with a historical narrative. The seven-time world champion who returns the Scuderia to the top. But so far what you've received is a fragile car, an unresponsive structure, and an environment where loyalties are divided. And in a sport like Formula One, where everything revolves around trust and precision, working in an environment of suspicion is like racing with a flat tire. You will inevitably lose pace, but the most dangerous thing is that you won't even know why. And this has repercussions that go far beyond the paddock. Because if Ferrari, with all its technical, human, and financial power, fails to build a reliable and cohesive structure around a figure like Hamilton, then the message it sends to the world is devastating. Not even the best can save them. From Ferrari's perspective, the reputational damage is immense. We are talking about a team that has been building a redemption narrative since 2022. A narrative that said, "We have learned from our mistakes. We are ready to return." But the Singapore GP completely dismantles that discourse. It exposes an uncomfortable truth. Not only is the SF25 far from a championship car, it is a single-seater that cannot guarantee basic reliability in extreme conditions. And that, in a season where McLaren leads solidly, Mercedes re-emerges with youth and structure, and Red Bull reacts with drastic decisions, is a sentence of mediocrity. But the most painful thing for the Tifosi is that, for the first time in years, Ferrari had everything to build something big. I had Hamilton. He had resources. He had a solid previous season. I had time. And yet he failed. Hamilton, for his part, faces a crossroads. You can choose to continue fighting from within, rebuild step by step, demand radical changes. Or he can accept that his time at Ferrari will be a more symbolic fight than a sporting one. But one thing is clear: time is ticking. And in Formula One, the windows of opportunity close very quickly. And that's where everything becomes personal. Because beyond the data, the strategy, the engineering, what is at stake now is the soul of Ferrari. And Hamilton's resilience. Is this what we expected from Ferrari in 2025? Do you think Hamilton can turn this situation around before it's too late? Or are we witnessing the beginning of the end of one of the most ambitious projects of the modern era of Formula One? Leave it in the comments.